Hello, my name is Anne Farrell, and I've been an English teacher at the United World College in Montezuma since 1988. And so that's been the length of my experience with IB, many, many years. And over the years, what I've realized is that the IB provides teachers with this extraordinary service in terms of keeping us up to date with current research and current educational philosophy. And to sort of prove my point a little bit, I want to talk about the language courses in particular and the new course, Language A, Language and Literature, which I think has caused quite a lot of confusion to administrators and teachers around the IB world. So since 1968, the IB has been designing a curriculum, and at times it can seem like a sort of an external body really concerned with rules and regulations, and can be very, very intimidating, especially if you're in the United States and you know that the IBO is based in Europe. But what I want to do is to try to argue that that's a wrong interpretation, and I have a colleague who refers to IBO as the mothership, which I think is a much better image of it. I think it's the commitment to reflecting educational philosophy and theory that I like about the IB. And I want to prove the point by talking a little bit about how that has changed with regards to groups 1 and 2. So when I first started with IB, you took either Language A, Literature, or you took Language B, Literature. The assumption then, back in the late 80s, is if you were doing the diploma, then you'd already been in an educational environment, you'd studied a language, and you were bilingual enough to be studying in 2 languages, the literature and analysing literary theory, which was a huge challenge, but I think it reflects the understanding of international education at that point. Now, in the 1990s, Council of Europe started questioning that premise about multilingualism and raised a whole lot of questions about language learning and language and communication. And the IB reflected that, because if you look at the hexagon, the different groups from that period, you see now we have Language A and we have second language. And for the first time, second language, Language B, became a language learning course. So you're either a native speaker or you're a language learner. On paper that sounded very good, and it was certainly a big improvement, but the question then was, how did you know which was your first language? For many international students, they have a language at home, but then they have the language of instruction at school. And so what is your first language? What is your second language? That too became complicated. By the time we get to the late 1990s, that question too of populations moving around the world, I suppose our youth being called global citizens, citizens of the world, it's less and less simple to categorize people as native speakers or language learners. And so the next curriculum review happens every 6 years. This introduced the idea that it would be literature studies or language acquisition. And so now, for the very first time, we had beginner courses in Group 2, we had ab initio courses, we had B courses for students who could already communicate, and Language A2 was introduced. Now, Language A2 is the origins of the new course, Literature A, Language and Literature. This, I think, was really important because it indicated that students could be bilingual in a language, they could be language learners, or they could already have some background in the language. And so for the first time, Language A2 allowed students to study literature, but also to study other texts. It became a textual analysis, more of a literary theory, critical reading course. I think what's been going on recently with the major curriculum review in Groups 1 and 2 has caused a lot of anxiety. It's caused not just administrators and IB coordinators, but teachers a lot of confusion and sometimes a lot of irritation that IB should be imposing these changes. And I want to try to defend IBO from this viewpoint because, again, I think it's reflecting the complexities of the modern world and the global society. Again, it's not so easy to categorize students. And if we look at the hexagon now, we begin to see that it's no longer about being a native speaker or a language learner. It's about choosing to study literature or choosing to study textual analysis, if you're fluent enough in that language, or maybe even to start a new language, start a language from scratch. So now when we talk about Group 1 and Group 2, there is much more flexibility for students to find a course which will help them develop as a communicator, but also for teachers and schools to adapt the IB program to the needs of their particular context and student body. And just to finish, I would introduce you to the latest idea that's just come out in May 2013, moving away from a hexagon with its straight lines and the idea that students can be categorized into 6 courses. Now the IB has a new model based upon a circle, which gives you the idea that students can be flowing around the circle rather than categorized by straight lines.